Merry Christmas from the Blanco Lirio channel here in sunny Sydney, Australia, on the second of 3 Sydney runs, LA Sydney runs that I'm going to do here for the month of December. Now, the Opera House is located right behind this giant cruise ship, which has since eclipsed the view coming in here to Sydney Harbor. So I'm meant to be out flying right now, heading back to Los Angeles, but our schedule got disrupted, and it got disrupted by the winter weather that's hit the rest of the country and has disrupted the schedule even all the way down here to Australia. And as I explain what happened to our schedule, it's a little microcosm of how significant weather events snowballs across the entire country in the airline industry. For our trip down here to Sydney, I want to answer a couple more questions that a lot of you had about this long-range flying. It, of course, requires 4 pilots, as I talked about on the previous update here in Sydney. One of our pilots could not get to work on time because of the disruption to air travel from all the weather across the country. Even though he was only coming down from either the Bay Area or Seattle, his flights were delayed, and the flights that he was able to get on in time were completely full. We have what's called reciprocal jump seat privileges on the airlines, but those jump seat privileges only work if there is room on the aircraft for us to get on the airplane. And when the weather hits, there's a line of pilots all trying to get to work a mile long, and so many of us do not get to work on time. So the one pilot didn't get to work on time. We don't have a lot of time to mess around because it's such a long flight down here to Sydney. We have only a couple of hours that if we can't make our takeoff time, we're out of crew rest for the rest of the trip. So we ended up in a hotel there at Los Angeles Christmas night and reset the whole trip for the next morning, where they were able to get a 4th pilot together for extra pay, premium pay on Christmas, on top of Christmas holiday pay, and we were able to get a full crew together and make it on down here to Sydney, Australia. So we got a minimum amount of crew rest, some 14 hours, and we're going to turn around and head back later on this morning and be back home just a few hours later than was originally scheduled. And then I've got a 3rd one of these planned for the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. One of the other questions that came up in the last update is, how do you guys handle communications on the way down to Australia? Well, you're on a Victor Airway all the way from Los Angeles to Sydney, but you're in a non-radar environment as soon as you coast out. So on the 777 and most any of these modern airliners, your primary reference for communications is CPDLC, or the Cockpit Data Link System, which is basically like a email system that talks to operators, which in turn talk to controllers, and does so automatically via text messages, which you in turn print up on board the aircraft. So every time we go over one of these waypoints on this Victor Airway, the 777 automatically sends a position report giving all the data as to exactly what time we hit that position and what time we're going to estimate the next position and what our 3rd position is going to be. So it's all done automatically. CPDLC, it's backed up with HF or high frequency radios, but that is only a backup. So we have very little communication on the HF radios. And then that is further backed up by 2 VHF radios, where you keep guard 121.5 and fingers 12345 on the 2nd channel, so you can talk to other aircraft in the area within VHF range. Now, what do you do when you get to those thunderstorms near the equator? You put in a request via the CPDLC for an offset of so many miles, and you tell them that you need 50 or even 100 miles off course to get around these thunderstorms that gather up around the equator. And since there's very little traffic out there, they easily grant you that ability to do that, and then you can go ahead and maneuver as required. You can also easily request a block altitude. Instead of being stuck at a hard altitude, you can request a block altitude of 3,000 or 4,000 feet to try to find a smoother ride on the way down here and work your way around all of the thunderstorm activity, especially that around the equator. Another question you had is, how do you deal with landing currency? When you're on a 4-pilot crew, I'm the FBFC all month long. I don't get a landing all month long. I have the same landing requirements as any other private pilot. I got to have 3 landings every 90 days. So what we typically do, if we do not get the landings as a FO, we will go back. In fact, I am scheduled to go back here in the beginning of January to the simulator for a landing currency ride, and we take a couple hours in the sim. Usually 4 of us pilots, they gather us all up, put us in the sim, and run us through the simulator and get our 3 landings. But it's not just 3 landings, it's a little mini check ride. You'll do a single engine ILS, a non-ILS procedure, go around, a single engine approach and landing, and it keeps your chops up for the check ride and for any emergency procedures that you might encounter while flying the line. So it's a great program to keep you current and qualified, the landing currency simulator ride. It's a non-jeopardy event. If you mess it up, you're going to do it over again until you get it right. While flying down here, I've had plenty of time to review the over 1,000 pages of public docket information from the NTSB regarding the Transair 737 that splashed in off of the coast of Honolulu last year. An incredible story. I'll be getting to that here soon, once I get back home shortly. But right now, all I want for Christmas is a good bowel movement and 8 hours of sleep in my own bed in my own time zone. Thanks so much for watching, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here. Look, here's the, I'll show you around here. We can get past this. The big reveal. These cruise ships just eclipse the whole scene there. There it is. There's the Opera House. So there's downtown Sydney with all the huge skyscrapers nowadays. The bridge, Contemporary Art Museum and the bridge. And all the cruisers getting off the cruise ship. See you here.